We did it. 6 years in the making. A dedication to the simplicity of craft, a patient honing of skills, a complex amount of rewrites, reworks, and a lot of start overs. In the last 6 years, we have learned a lot and created a couple of short stories in preparation for this one, because this story and the creation of Obstacle Studios is different. We are taking the time to celebrate the completion of the first 34 pages of a much larger story, so stick around for the best is yet to come. For this video, we're just celebrating a little bit because the first 34 pages are completely done of the Hallow.
Done.
Inked, colored, lettered. We're just so excited to share this with you all. We're doing the final touch and final editing process, but we just kind of want to take this moment to talk about the process, what led us there. And I think if we were being really honest, the process started years and years ago with our first book, The State of Nowhere.
Yep.
And some other stories that followed that. But we're here. We feel like it's been a long journey. We have so much more that we're so excited to share, and where this story is going, it only gets better from here on out. But yeah, Greg, I don't know if you want to just a brief walkthrough of the timeline and how even the Hallow came to be and why we're making this story and who we're making it for.
Yeah, man. I feel like this has been, referencing the State of Nowhere is a very I think useful touch point, because it feels like it has been years in the making. The State of Nowhere was a huge learning opportunity for us, and I think we learned a lot through that process, and we carried that over a lot to this book. And I just think the start of this book to now has felt like such a whirlwind in comparison to the process of the State of Nowhere. I think the State of Nowhere, I don't know if you remember, Jacob, how long that took from us just finishing one issue of that was.
No, I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about that, but this has been in a lot of ways easier to work on. I've had more fun working on this in a lot of ways. Partially just because I think I felt my confidence shoot up a lot on working on this book. I just know a little bit more what I'm doing. Always still learning. I hope I never stop learning. But I think I know we've mentioned in one other video when you gave me the call and sort of pitched me this idea, and we were working on a couple other things at that point. This just stood out as this has been years in the making. This feels like a lot of things coming to fruition all at once. Not only sort of the lessons learned in other books, but also, at least for me, this has been a full circle moment of sort of me falling back in love with creating art to the fullest extent. Comics in general made me fall back in love with creating art. For those who don't know, I was sort of primarily pursuing graphic design and painting, and doing illustration, but not allowing myself to really go full into illustration. And I had fallen out of love with making art. It just felt like a chore to make art. And then when I got back into comics and illustration, I fell back in love with doing art. It made me feel like a kid again. And so I think in a lot of ways, that's really where we've been on this. So,
and I think something that is so exciting about this project as a whole is we both obviously love the comic industry. We grew up reading these books, but we have seen this shift where it feels like as a whole, the comic industry is really gearing itself more towards these adult stories.
Yeah.
And it's leaving kids behind, which is crazy because the whole way we are looking at media, we're absorbing media, is so visual, and especially the youth. And it feels like graphic novels in this medium is kind of the perfect bridge between literature and this visual desire that we're having as a culture. And this is kind of our answer to that. It's we're going to create stories more geared to the youth, but also as a way to really bring the youth into deeper concepts, open this veil of wonder through this medium. And this is our best attempt. It's hey, stories, crafting is also important. This is our answer to AI. This is our answer to how we can bridge the youth and start bringing them to stories. And also just I feel a big thing that makes me excited about this whole project is we're making things kind of from our Christian background and bringing in a lot of that theology into these stories and kind of letting that to steer the ship and just like creating all this energy and excitement.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like what do you call that grid again? Where it's like
No idea.
I can't remember what do you call that type of graph? But it feels like it's that graph, but there's like 10 different circles overlapping, and that's where that the Hallow is like that point in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been crazy,
But it's still, I feel like we're still like you said, we're still learning so much. I feel like our same
yeah,
back and forth arguments about
yeah,
timelines,
yeah. Well,
process.
I'm gonna throw it back to you, Jacob, because you asked me sort of to give a rundown of this process a little bit, but I think really this a lot of this began with you because like I said, I think I had my head full in on a couple other things, and you were feeling, from my understanding, you were feeling really heavy right around the time you started sort of like working through some ideas about the Hallow, um, and remind me sort of how that idea even popped into your head.
About specifically the Hollow or just odd school in general and how we're gonna
I
approach
guess
it.
a little bit of both, but specifically the Hallow, because that just it felt like this crazy light bulb moment where it was like it was just like it had fallen into your lap, and it just felt out of nowhere for me, but it also
Yeah.
felt perfect.
Well, I don't think it was like out of nowhere because you said we've been working on stories and trying to make comics for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and I think after the State of Nowhere and Birthday, we kind of got to a moment where I was like, I don't know what this fully looks like because I don't know how we're gonna even break into this or if or how we're making these stories. Do we even want to break into like where this direction's going? And then we kind of took that, and then I remember telling you like, hey, what if we like did stories but like from an education standpoint?
Yeah.
Like I have no interest in doing that.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. I still think it's a really good idea. I still to this day think it's a really good idea. Maybe future tense. But then I remember like I was sitting with a friend from church and he's like, that idea of learning, like, why don't you put it to like theology and like use the concepts of theology, like take this Tolkien approach to storytelling and apply it to the graphic novel moment. And I remember that as like I think I called you like an hour after. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
I know you're not into this school idea, but what if we changed it to this? And you're like, that's cool. I don't really know what that story would even look like. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know yet either. But give me like 2 weeks to just think. And if anyone has ever thought about building a world, like 2 weeks is a crazy short amount
Yeah,
of
you
time
pulled it together really fast.
to get to that idea. But I remember sitting in my desk just like writing different ideas. Like we knew we wanted our first story to be a story about coming together, about like this idea of confirmation, acceptance into like the church body as a whole. But then how you do that, how you show that, how you make it not feel like preachy, all those things are like super complicated. But then the idea is like, why don't we just use ants, which kind of already work within this colony, kind of like a church structural, and we can kind of like just pull all this together.
Right.
And it kind of felt like, and as we're working on this, there's so many concepts, worlds that were kind of already created that have kind of just like reshed and reskinned themselves into the Hallow. So it's like basically like 4 years of practice come to this moment of world building, but it's yet we were able to like take all of this practice and throw it into this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think, yeah, like you said, 2 weeks is not a lot of time. I just felt like I kind of mentioned, like you mentioned, everything about this has just felt like the pieces have just like clicked into place. Yeah, and I think even just you pitching, I think when you told me ants, and it was gonna sort of be this fantasy story. I have had a long time obsession with bugs, and fantasy has always been my favorite genre, for movies, for books, for video games, for everything. And so right away I was like done and done. And then even further, you were like, and they're desert ants, and I was like, and it just cinched it for me because ever since when I was, I don't know, probably like 10 years old, and I played the first Prince of Persia game, and even younger than that, probably when I watched Aladdin as a kid, I've just had this obsession with just like the deserts, and with just like I think all like with Persia and Egypt and just all these like, cultures that are so vastly different from my own. And I've just wanted to learn so much about them. And I think, using those, not necessarily as direct jumping off points, but at least for as inspiration for our story and for sort of how we build this world of these desert ants really, really excited me. And I think that it was like one thing after another. It was like, wow, this just feels like if 8, 9, 10-year-old me could see what I'm doing now, he would be so excited.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And it's also one of those cool things. It's not just like we're doing desert ants because desert ants are cool. We have all these childhood connections to these stories. Actually, from like researching a lot of different ant species.
Yeah.
And the desert ants being this colony of ants, how they operate in the real world is they build these mounds as like beacons to bring them home. Mm-hmm. And we just thought that symbolism just felt so naturally with like why as believers we believe in the church body is kind of like a body that helps each other like find home, which that home ultimately is like heaven and God and that rest. But it's just like that really cool correlation that just like was like, whoa, these ants are perfect for our story. They happen to be in the desert. It's really cool. And then it's from there, it's like, okay, we have these ants, but we kind of like need all these other different bugs. Like, what if we have a praying mantis? What does that character look like? I don't know. We made one, and you're going to have to see more. We've made some spiders. We've made birds that attack these bugs. We've made zombie bugs. It's kind of just been this like really fun process and journey. And I just want to take a moment to like, we got to 34 pages, and like we both have full-time jobs. We both have kids, and this is like a labor of love. And there is like, to me, a lot of times, like, is this worth it? Like, this is like the longest process of creating. And I wish like both of us could go full-time, but we just like are not there yet. But yet we do have a timeline that is like going to allow us to really like flesh out the story. Yeah. In a pretty realistic, fast time. We're just so excited to share this with all of you all. So if you're interested in seeing more about how this story comes alive, if you want to know what a mantis creature looks like in this world of desert ants, or if you want to know about a spider city that operates more like a vampire kingdom, then you should subscribe and follow for more.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching and following along.